West Africa and the Origin of Mexican Rice Cultivation and Rice Gastronomy by Marco Polo Hernandez Cuevas, Chef Marco. This presentation is based on my forthcoming book, The Afro-Mexican Ancestors and the Nation They Constructed by Negritud Editors, with a foreword by Jesus Chucho Garcia, cover design Sonia Ruiz. The book has 5 essays: the Spanish lynching of Mexican Marrón Pedro el Negro and the genocide of Africans and African offspring in 19th century New Spain, the Black Armies of the South, a historical reconstruction of the Mexican War of Manumission and Independence, 1810-1821, the 19th century foundational African-Mexican novel versus the Negrista novel. The Mexican colonial term Chino is a referent of Afro-descendant. And West Africa and the Origin of Mexican Rice Cultivation and Rice Gastronomy. This picture on the cover page is of an 18th century casta painting. Throughout Latin America, 16 to 64 casta categories have been recorded. 16 were in use in colonial Mexico. The title of this painting is De Negro y de India China Cambuja. The Fruit of the Land would be a better title for this late 18th century, 1763, casta painting by Miguel Cabrera. Casta paintings were used in the 17th and 18th centuries in New Spain, the colonial name for Mexico. Among others, the clergy used them to illustrate their advice. Of primary importance for this presentation is the China Cambuja. This is this Mexican child, fruit of the land, and the inheritor of a cultural landscape of First Nations and African parentage, as depicted in this pictorial document that records a portion of the ruling Spanish colonial mentality of the epoch. Rice cultivation and rice gastronomy arrived in Mexico as Paga, Fulani, Mandingo, Wolof, etc. cultural capital from the Senegambia region in the 16th century. Rice belongs to the grass family and the genus Orisa, tribe Orian. The genus Orisa includes 20 wild species and 2 cultivated species. The 2 cultivated species are the African Orisa glaberrima, red rice, and Orisa sativa, native to Asia. Asian rice is the most common. With the advent of successful mechanized milling toward the end of the 18th century, the Asian variety gained prominence due to its sturdiness. African rice has to be milled by knowledgeable hands with mortar and pestle to obtain the desired whole grains. Until recently, it was believed that African rice did not develop beyond the Niger Delta. Wolof rice, Ghanaian, Nigerian style. Wolof rice with fried plantains. Mexican-style rice, arroz a la mexicana. Arroz a la mexicana with fried plantains. Costa Chica, Mexico. The close kinship of these rice delicacies is obvious for anyone who takes the time to look with open eyes. Africa and its gastronomical legacies are present throughout Mexico and beyond. Mole con arroz a la mexicana, peppers, peanut, chocolate sauce. Mole with white rice, Mexican delicacy. Mexican tamal. Mexican habanero sauce. Fried tilapia. Mexican goat barbecue, Central Mexico. Mexican crystallized fruit. Mexican agua de Jamaica, Roselle tea. Mexican tamarind cold tea. Tamarind fruit. Tamarind tree. Mexican national drinks. Mafe, West African delicacy. Cani, habanero, Senegalese hot sauce. Barbecuing goat, West Africa. Use the bisap, Roselle tea. Buha, Senegalese tamarind drink. Dakar means tamarind and wolof. Ugandan liboki. Matuki, wrapped steamed plantains. Cheboyen, Senegalese delicacy. West African tilapia. African candied fruit. To date, there are two accepted theories of the arrival of rice, rice cultivation, and gastronomy to Mexico. One is that the Spaniards brought rice and rice know-how in the 1520s. The second theory proposes that rice arrived from Asia via the China galleon in the 1570s. Four reliable sources document the presence of rice in New Spain. The first, while solely concerned with the first 3 grains of wheat to be planted in the continent, indirectly mentions a sack of rice and a small amount of rice from the port of Veracruz brought to Hernán Cortés in Coyoacán, Mexico City, circa 1522. The second source informs Mexico received its first lot of rice seed around 1522 in a cargo mixed with wheat. The third states that Champoton, a Spanish sugar mill in Campeche in the Yucatan Peninsula, exported rice among other goods in 1559, 20 years after its establishment. The fourth, in medieval Spanish, asserts that in 1579 in Santa María de la Victoria, Tabasco, se ha sembrado el arroz emillo, se da muy bien. Rice and millet have been planted and have adapted well. The Moors arrived to Spain in 711 after Christ enters. Moors brought an immense wealth of cultural capital currently passed as Spanish. 200 years ago, the Kitab al-Fela, or Book of Agriculture of Ibn al-Wan, was rediscovered in the Royal Spanish Library of San Lorenzo del Escorial and hailed as the greatest of all medieval treatises on agriculture. For hundreds of years, this work had been completely lost to the Spanish farmers, for whom it had been written in the latter half of the 12th century of our era. Other European countries had never heard of Ibn al-Wan. The earlier Roman agricultural writings, including those of Spanish-born Columella, had been preserved in monastery libraries, but Ibn al-Awam was a Moor. As long as the conflict between the Moors and the Christians remained fresh in their memories, church and state alike condemned everything Moorish, even their agricultural achievements. Although rice arrived in the Iberian Peninsula in the 10th century, rice culture, and gastronomy was not adopted by Christians in Spain until the 18th century. Spanish paella emerged in 19th century Valencia. Thousands of Wolof women and men are reported present in Valencia, Spain in the period 1482-1516. The first commercial China galleon arrived from Manila to Acapulco, Mexico in 1571. According to the cited sources, rice was in Mexico in 1522 and was planted in Campeche by 1559, a decade before the first China galleon arrived. The missing link is that African women and men from the rice coast and beyond, free and enslaved, arrived with the Spaniards in 1519. West Africans did not come empty-handed. Africans brought to the Americas, including Mexico, a vast amount of cultural capital. This study recognizes and underlines those facts. West African women and men were the agents of rice cultivation, and rice gastronomy in Mexico and beyond. This is verified by observing the amazing similarities of West African and Mexican rice gastronomies among other American rice gastronomies.